That's what I flew, the Charlie model. We got the Cobras a little later in my tour, but I was too short and I was doing something else at the time. So I never did get the transition to the Cobra. And the letters I sent my wife, she says, all you did was bitch about not going to Cobra school. I said, that's true. Yep, I did. So we did work with the Navy for a while. They sent us down to, I forget where, down around Mito, down in the Fort Corps. And the Navy gunships needed a little extra assistance. The poor Navy, they were still flying the B model Hueys with the 4 M60s, and we had the Charlie models with the the miniguns. So I got picked to fly that the first time. We had to get up like at 3 o'clock in the morning and take off before sunrise, fly down. So we got down there around 6. And oh man, we're just moaning and groaning about this. We land, and this young Navy sailor comes out and he salutes. Salutes? What's a salute? He says, would you gentlemen like breakfast? Well, yeah, that'd be good. It takes us in. I can see why the Navy eats so well. They had real milk, real eggs. How would you gentlemen like your eggs? How would we like our eggs? Nobody ever asked us that. Wonderful breakfast. We went out and flew for a mission. It was pretty cool watching the Navy work. We never did get shot at, and we didn't have to shoot, so that was cool. We land for lunch, same thing, a wonderful lunch. And we fly back to Tainan. And we're thinking, man, what a good deal this is. We get fed well, we don't get shot at, this is terrific. Don't tell anybody, we'll do this again tomorrow. So we told the CO, we're already on this early schedule. We don't want to make anybody else do that. We'll go to bed early, we'll do it again tomorrow. And we did. And so one of the crew chiefs squawked. He said, man, you won't believe what a good deal this is. So from then on, we got taken off it and they rotated us through other guys. But it was really cool working with the Navy. Yeah, you can't read this, but this was the joke, of course. What's happening here is the pilot is pointing to one little bullet hole on the boom of the Huey there, and down at the bottom he says, I can just see the citation now. They successfully landed their bullet-riddled aircraft. There were a lot of awards passed out for one bullet hole in an aircraft, I can assure you. Yeah, this is me at age 24. I can't believe I looked like that. So that was the armament on the Hueys that that was kind of the basic armament there. The 2 miniguns and 2 of the 7-shot rocket pods. We also had some that they took off the miniguns and put on the larger rocket pods, like the 48 pods, and some that had this configuration but had the grenade launcher on the front, looks like a toilet seat on the front of the Huey. We call it the chunker, putting out the little grenades. But that was the basic layout that you see there. The only problem with, it fired, the guns were rated at 6,000 rounds a minute. The Army derated them to 4,000 rounds a minute. And then they derated it further when both were firing 2,000 rounds a minute per gun. But then the system was set up, that we could traverse the guns. So they were set up so that when the one that traversed it would shoot off the nose of the helicopter, it stopped firing, and this one picked up the rate of fire that this one dropped. So you always had 4,000 rounds a minute. And for those of you that heard it, it doesn't sound like rat-a-tat-tat. It sounds like, right? And when you're shooting it, as you know, every 6th round is a tracer. It looks like it's all tracers. It's just solid. Infantry guys loved it. It was quite a weapon. The rockets, not so much. The rockets were they were meant to be fired at a much higher airspeed than a helicopter, so they really weren't all that accurate. And we had this very sexy, expensive rocket sight that swung down in front of us with a little illuminated reticle and the whole thing. Well, the rockets weren't that accurate, so we would just take our grease pencil, pull that down and look through it and put an X on the windshield and get rid of that thing up there. It's kind of like measuring with a micrometer, marking with a crayon, and cutting it with an axe. You push the button to fire, and the rockets would go at me. I mean, they would go close, but we couldn't really say, I'm going to put that through a window. And these rockets were old. They were Korean War vintage, at least the ones we were using. Once in a while, never happened to me, once in a while, one of the fins would come off, the stabilizing fins, and that rocket would just kind of go out, and nobody knows where it's going. Some of them came back towards the helicopter. Yeah, didn't happen to me, but I've heard the stories. Here's that H-23 used as a this wasn't one of ours, used as a medevac helicopter like MASH from the 50s. Put the stretcher on the skids. This is the LOH, which very rapidly got the name Loach for pronouncing LOH. And that's what the air cavalry was. We had the LOHs. They would go down and look for the enemy, actually try to draw fire. I was in the gunships. The gunships would be up above. And the idea would be when the scout pilots drew fire, they would throw out a smoke grenade, and our mission was to go in, and try to take out the enemy. And we also had an infantry platoon in each company. So sometimes they would put the infantry in to try to find the enemy. Part of my tour, because I was an infantry officer, was they took me out of the flying for several months, well, quite a while actually, and said, you're going to live with the infantry, and you're going to teach them how to use the air cavalry. Because we were the first air cavalry squadron in 3 Corps. The first of the 9th up in I Corps really kind of proved the concept with the first Cav. So we were the first one in 3 Corps, and most of the infantry commanders thought of us like an air mobile company. We didn't do lifts. We didn't put troops in. We didn't provide services to put in supplies. We didn't fly you to Saigon. We were a combat outfit. And they were having trouble with that. So they said, you're going to go live with these infantry units that we're working with and explain to them how we work, which was really an eye-opener to watch how they flailed. And I'm not blaming the infantry commanders, but they were guessing at everything. But I would tell their operations officer, our scout pilots found enemy here, here, and here. Here they are. They're along this creek bed here. This is where you'll find them. And he would say, oh, you guys can't know that from up there. I said, no, our guys go down and they actually part the grasses with the down. Yes, they found them. Oh, they can't know that. Let me just go through this and I'll get to that. Here's Gary Lucky again, tracing the bullet path through how it just missed the pilot there. It just went right past his cheek. A couple of Huey accidents, unfortunately. This is me looking at the rocket. It looks like a spider looking at a wristwatch, doesn't it? Yeah, that's where I lived. I lived in the GP medium tent. That's where we lived. In retrospect, does it really make sense to be standing beside a live ammunition like that? I mean, it didn't explode when it hit, so what do? We stand by it. And, yeah. So yes, I lived out in the field. This is where I lived for weeks at a time, out there in the tactical operations center of the. Much of this was with the 1st Division. So yes, when this operations major would say, you guys can't really know where this stuff is. What I learned to do was say, how would you like to go for a ride? So we put that operations officer in the left seat of that LOH and take him out there. And all it took was one ride for them to say, oh man, I guess when you guys say you found it, you found it. Because they would be down there low, parting the grass. And they say, yep, okay, we believe you. So from then on, the unit that we were working with, when I told them this is what they found, they believed us because they saw how we got there. Yeah, living out there, all that dust is from one Huey. Man, it was dry season. How many of you are up around Tay Ninh and know that mountain? Nui Ba Din? Yeah, there we go. Yep. Black Virgin Mountain up there. The U.S. owned the top. The VC owned the rest of the mountain. Here's the top. Now, I was in the gunship just covering, the little red arrow there is, let me see. Well, you showed me how to get to that point. Oh, there it is. That red arrow there is pointing to a Huey that's on the ground. They're bringing us some supplies. And this is the perimeter around here. We owned all of that. All of this, the VC owned. I don't know if that was the Officers Club swimming pool there or not. I don't think so. General Westmoreland, this is the guy that during the Tet, when Way was being overrun, didn't believe the Marines. When the Marines told him the amount of VC forces were there, he didn't believe it and told them that can't be possible. The man was a moron. I don't mind saying it. So very briefly, yeah, I do show these dead bodies. Why? Because that's what we do. Sometimes we sanitize this stuff. That's what we did over there. And it's important for people to know that. You know, when we tell stories, it's often the funny stuff, and this is what we did. Talking about inflation, it's the body count inflation. So I heard this on multiple occasions. Our gunships would be out there flying around, and they'd say, hey, we caught some troops, and I rolled in and, laid some fire down, put some rockets out, whatever. Our operations, I would say, well, how many did you kill? I don't think we got any. They got right into the trees. I don't think we got any. You don't think you got any? No, we didn't. No. Oh, we'll give you 5. No, I don't. No, we're going to give you 5. Well, as that went up to headquarters, that's what happened. Pilot says, I got 1. Operations, oh, that's not good enough. We'll give you 3. It gets to the squadrons, oh, no, it's 5. By the time it gets to the 1st Aviation Brigade, they're up to probably 10. By the time it gets to McNamara, it's, 20 or 30. I saw it happen time and time again. We killed the same guy 5 times, I'm sure. Maybe 10 times. So I come back from a mission, and the company clerk comes out to me. And I'm sitting there, all sweaty, and he says, Captain Lawson, you got to go see the first sergeant. I said, why? He said, well, you signed the wrong contract with the Army. You signed 3 years total service. It was supposed to be 3 years after flight school. I said, no kidding. He says, yes, sir, you got to go see him. I says, no. He says, you're not going to go see him? I said, no. The Army and I have a deal. I'm sticking to my end. They're going to stick to their end. So pardon my French, but I'm going to give you the exact quote that this specialist said to me. He steps back and he salutes and he says, fucking A, sir, good for you. Turns out there were hundreds of us that were commissioned about the same time that the Pentagon sent out the wrong paperwork. So I get back to my tent and I said, hey, you won't believe what happened. So, Specialist so-and-so just came to me and I told him the story. The guy says, yeah, he was just in here about an hour ago. Me too. Turns out every commissioned officer in my unit signed the correct paperwork. So, look, I know there were people that spent multiple tours there. And I even considered the Army as a career for a while. But I'm going to be honest with you. When I saw the Vietnam War, what we did and what we were doing and what happened, I wanted no part of another tour. No way. It was all tactics, no strategy. The people, honest, good work, honest people trying to do a good job. All of us in this room, but we were flailing over there. Part of what I'm going to talk about here before this is over is how we got to Vietnam and the tragedy that it was. In my opinion, you may disagree, and that's okay. It was immoral war. We should never have been there. So right towards the end of my tour, I was always the guy with a camera. So they said, well, for your last like a month and a half, you're going to be the public information officer for the squadron. The new commander was a real publicity hound. So he wanted someone to take pictures and send stuff back to the newspapers in Columbus, Georgia. So they made me the public information officer for a while. The cool thing about it was I did get to go around and take a lot of pictures of our unit and what we did. So here's the briefing for the gunship. Right there. I'm going to tell you a story about this pilot here in a minute. Getting into the Cobra with a pilot. We usually go out in teams of one LOH and one Cobra, sometimes two of each, and off they go. This picture is interesting because I know you can't read it, but that little placard up there that you see up here, it says, warning, rotating the gun may fire, because it's turned electrically, but it fires mechanically. So if that thing is ready to go, all you have to do is turn that barrel and it'll fire. So I just think that should be a much larger warning, don't you think? I mean, just going in, oh, what does this do? That's something you should never hear a pilot say. What does this do? Yeah, the Cobra was really a cool machine. It was a big improvement over the standard, over the Huey. This is one of my favorite pictures. It's hard, I know it's hard to see on the screen, but the cigarette hanging out of his mouth here, off they go. We all smoked at the time. In fact, the definition of an optimist was an Army helicopter pilot that thought he was going to die of lung cancer. So that's. So this little slide here, oh hell with it, just tell them to fire for effect. So in June of '68, the VC were rocketing Saigon almost every night. And of course, the rockets weren't guided; they were just land wherever they land. So the commander of the Capital Control, or Capital, whatever he was, he said, "Let's get an air cavalry group out there." So they picked one of our troops. It was B Troop. They only flew at night. They would take off after sunset, and their mission was to fly around Saigon. And of course, when the rockets were fired, you could see the trail. You could see where they were launched from. And the idea was they could roll in right away onto that site there and put some fire down on the rocket launching site. Well, this went on for, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks. Then the general, who was in charge of Capital Control, he was an ex-artillery general. It drove him crazy that aviation assets were getting credit for this. He said, okay, from now on, you guys don't fire. You just climb back up and adjust artillery. Well, all you guys in this room know, it takes a while. You don't just roll in and put fire on it. You got to call in and see, whatever the call sign is, so-and-so, fire mission, whole thing, give them the coordinates, put some rounds out there. And of course, by this time, they've packed up their rocket and they're gone. They're out of there. So this went on for a couple of days. And then our pilots thought, you know what, this is really stupid. Let's do our job and take out the rocket site. Then we'll climb up and we'll adjust artillery out into the rice paddies somewhere. And that's what they did. They just fired some rounds out there. Said, okay, you got it. The general was happy. We were happy. And we wasted all kinds of artillery rounds doing absolutely nothing. The lift platoon. The air cavalry squadrons, troops had the scout platoon with the LOHs, gun platoon with the Charlie model Hueys or the Cobras, and they had a infantry platoon and associated lift helicopters. So occasionally they would go out and they would find some captives. And here they are bringing some of them back into interrogation. The smile on his face right here, I think, is okay. My war is over. He looks like he's just as happy to be captured. But they would take them into headquarters and they would be interrogated.